Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a new episode of the Fintech Hunting Podcast. We have an amazing guest for you today. He's a lending luminary, a tech trendsetter. He's been acknowledged as a Vanguard by Housing Wire. He's one of the most connected individuals in the mortgage industry. He's a technology evangelist, and the list could go on and on. We are very lucky to have back to the show Josh Friend, CEO and founder of Insellerate. Josh, welcome back to the show.
Michael, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. I think in my description, the one thing that I think I take the most pride of is that it's 24 years now in the mortgage industry. So that's where I started, and it's where I've stayed.
Well, it is great to have you. You have a wealth of knowledge. We can read off all of those accolades, but more importantly than anything, you've been on the lending side. You've trained tons of loan officers. You've helped people obtain the dream of home ownership. So you're not one of those techies who, hey, let's just create some tech and hope it works. You saw the problems. You were in the industry. You looked for ways to solve it, and technology is a way to do that.
That's right. I mean, that's our industry has been and still is full of really old, antiquated technology. So when I got in the industry, I started building tech, and it's funny is in 24 years, guess what? It's the same technology lenders are using. And it's like, that's really, really old. It was old 24 years ago.
So let's talk about that as it relates to today's market conditions, right? They're tough market conditions. There's been layoffs. There's been consolidation. And first thing we know is usually at this time, it's the lenders that lean in that are the ones that grab market share. They're the ones that continue to market. They're the ones that continue to engage. One of the things that I see lenders do, and I really want you to touch upon this point, is I think when market conditions get a little tough and people look at how do I cut costs, a knee-jerk reaction is just stick with the same old technology that had been using year in and year out. Why is that potentially a major mistake?
I mean, there's a couple of things. I mean, let's just talk about the fundamentals of technology and what iteration of the evolution of technology we're in. Are we in the first, second, third, fourth generation of our technology? And, I think it's somewhere like the third generation of where our technology was transistor radios and simple capacitors, and it was analog computers. Now it's where we are today. And it was kind of like electricity. You travel around the country, around the world, other countries have different plugs.
Yep. Right.
And it was because, and it took, years in America when electricity first came out, there was different types of plugs as well. There was no uniformity. It was a brand new technology. It's electricity. This is new. And then over time, standards started to emerge. If everyone does 110 volt, then you make machines that can handle 110 volt, the stuff won't break, the lines will work. And if everyone makes the plugs look like this, we got universality, everyone's going to be able to plug their thing in. And, overseas, they came up with their own idea. Great. We have an adapter. Real simple. Plug it in here. You go overseas, you can plug it right in the wall. It down converts, up converts, does what it's supposed to do. But it took decades and decades of electricity being out there before people started to go to the standardization. Technology's done the same thing. Right? If you really think about it, mortgages in the 90s when people started using computers and stuff to do mortgages.
I hate to admit, I can remember those days. I was in the industry back then.
I remember getting appraisals with people taking pictures and taping them to pieces of paper, and they type it up on the typewriter.
Yep.
And, I still remember that to this, still remember getting those. And that technology, it was there because it was really new. So there wasn't as many standardizations, right? The thought of the cloud and things like software as a service and platform, those didn't even exist in the 90s. Those weren't thoughts. The first thought of a cloud computing was in the early 2000s was loud clouds. The first thing that ever came out, they even decided to talk about cloud computing. It just didn't exist. So all these things didn't exist. So these systems were built, pioneers, right? Great. But, you don't want to use Thomas Edison's first, electric machine, whatever he built. You want to use the one he built at the end of the career. Or you want to use the one people have built today who's built on technology. And I think that's where we're at now is this mortgage technology. It's old. And Now there's standardization. So there's companies like Insellerate, and there's other companies. There's there's a group of companies that we work with, Lender Price being one of them, Be Smarty being one of them, Lodestar being another one, that we use more modern technology. And we build differently. We use microservices, and we're what's called API driven. So our software isn't like one giant blob of code. It's a bunch of individual little pieces of software that work together. So why is that important? Well, you want to integrate something, you want to change something, you want to innovate something. I can easily do it because our system is built. It's like a Lego set. It's built with all the connectors, and you can just click things in. You don't have to build anything custom, if you will. And I think that's the difference.
So let's talk about that as it applies to today's market conditions, right? People are trying to cut cost, and they say, well, I don't know if I should invest in technology. I'll just keep using what I have. How much is that costing them in dollars? Meaning they have outdated technology. It's harder to support. It doesn't connect to all of the different things in their tech stack. They can't be as competitive because they can't make changes. Go into some of that, because I think that's one of the areas that I think a lot of lenders, when things get tough, they kind of kick the technology can down the road. We'll just stick with what we have, and that will do. And they think that's a cost-saving measure, and it's really most of the time costing them more money.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is right. There's two things. One, I think some lenders see cut technology costs as a cost savings effort because, truthfully, a lot of their technology is not making them money.
Yep.
So they're like, well, this CRM system, no one's really using. We're not really getting that much anything out of it. So that is a cost saving. It's not really doing anything for you, because if it's not integrated, and if it's not set up right, and if it doesn't have all those deep connections within your tech stack to be able to really manage customer service, really drive conversions, like right now more than ever, if someone's going to get a loan and you talk to them, you better make sure the one you get that loan.
That's right.
Right. So
every lead matters now more than ever.
Yeah. And well, speaking of that, old technology, we've 4 years of our MBA contact study. We go online, we apply at mortgage companies, we ask them for a mortgage, and then we time how often do they call, text, email, what's all that kind of stuff. And I'm not shocked because I've been doing it for so long, but every year it's like half the companies don't even respond to a lead a single time in inquiry, not even one response. And like 10% people call, only 2% or 11% of people use text messages. It's astounding. So I can tell you it's costing people lots of money, because there's people out there, you have customers who are asking for mortgages and you don't realize it, but your staff is not communicating with them. And
exactly. So let's talk about that, because I think, the first knee-jerk reaction is, well, then you're basically saying my staff is lazy. And that's not what we're saying. I think what we're saying is, because the systems aren't communicating with one another, because there's not an alert and a notification, because that information is not easily accessible on a mobile device, a lot of times the loan officer's not getting the information. They're getting it days, weeks later. It gets tied up in a bunch of other emails, and the systems they're using are not working because they're not in sync, and it's not one collaborative tool that they can use to really accomplish those tasks.
Yeah, I think that's you said it right. It's the systems, they're not driving business to the loan officers or action. And you're right. It's not about being lazy. I look at myself as a non-lazy person, right? And I was a loan officer, and I still do some sales at Insellerate, and we have a sales team, but I still get involved and have to follow with people. I use Insellerate to manage myself, because it's not about lazy. It's just no one can remember everyone you talk to. And if you're a loan officer, that could be, depending on what kind of loan officer, that could be hundreds of people every single month. Right. How in the world are you ever going to remember that? Oh, shoot, you know what? I forgot that Jim and Sally said they're moving at the end of the year because their daughter's going to college. And once their daughter goes to college, they're going to move to Florida. You don't remember that. But if the systems are set up, you don't have to remember that. And exactly. I think that's the key is, automate, instead of trying to tell loan officers, use the software, automate it. So even if they don't use the software, it still does the job for them.
I think one of the other areas that we talk about with cost savings, and it's amazing as you talk about modern CRMs and everything, there's a number of lenders out there, because they have multiple lending channels, they've purchased different CRMs. I have one for consumer direct, but that doesn't work with retail. So I bought a different one for retail, and I bought one for wholesale. If people are looking to reduce costs, talk to me a little bit about the Insellerate platform, because to my knowledge, you guys are the only ones that handle all lending channels.
That's right. I think that's one of the things that we've really been talking about a lot with lenders is your total cost of ownership of whatever technology you have right now. You have to really understand what that is. It's not just the monthly fee. Let's say if you're a Salesforce customer, it's not just your monthly Salesforce bill. It's your monthly Salesforce bill plus the customization and the consultants you have to hire to come in and do the work, plus the full-time staff member or members or teams you have to run Salesforce. So you have to start adding all these total costs, all these different systems. And you're right. If I'm a lender and I have 3 systems, it's going to be hard to get someone to be an expert in managing all 3 systems and be efficient and get all they can out of those 3 systems. So when you use a software like Insellerate, you have what we really focused in on is let's make it really easy. I was a lender, and lenders are usually thinly managed. We don't have these big groups and huge. Not everyone's like Quicken that has 100 programmers on staff.
Right.
So how do we make it so that we can make it easy for them to manage and easy for them to use? And that's really kind of what we focused on, is how to make that simple and easy. So that way now the technology is doing what you want it to do. It's driving money, right? It's driving results, and it's set up for you.
Let's talk about how important realtor outreach is. It's a purchase market. You already mentioned every lead matters. Why is realtor outreach and that constant communication with them so critical?
It's a great topic. And, Michael, I'm going to have, I'd love to do another show with one of our lenders, who used to be a sales manager of mine for many years and a good friend of mine. And we were just having this conversation the other day about realtor outreach. And he's like, Josh, and he was a consumer direct loan officer and manager his whole career. And now all of a sudden he's a broker and he's getting into retail and he's doing great. And he's like, I'm just getting all these deals and I just keep getting referral after referral. And I got real estate agents calling me. And, he goes, it's really actually not that difficult. Here's what I do. He uses Insellerate, so it helps him with this, a lot of the process. But every time he gets a referral, someone's buying a house, he goes, I immediately call the seller's agent, introduce myself, let them know that I'm going to do the best job they've ever had. They can call me 24 hours a day, and I'm going to impress them so much that when this transaction is done, they're going to want to refer me business. And is there anything else I can help them with? Yeah. And then I go to the buyer's agent and let them know the same thing. He goes, and I do this and I then follow up after the transaction closed. Hey, was that transaction good? He goes, and it's working. I'm getting business. I'm getting referrals. And because you know what? And he goes, Josh, what I'm getting told by these real estate agents is no one's doing this. No one's really following up and keeping me up to date and checking in. Like, you're the only ones doing this. And that's, that says a lot. That then means there's a ton of business there if you just give good service.
Exactly. And I think leveraging the technology so that you can give that good service, so you have the reminders, so you know what technology or the questions that they had, the different nuances of that loan and what was going on with the Smiths file. If you have the technology that you can consistently continue to update those people and stay in touch, look at the difference it's making. It's giving them a much better experience. And who's the realtor going to go to? The one that they know, the one that they trust, and the one that they know is going to get the business done.
I think real estate agents at this point, for the most part, don't care about the free lunch anymore. They just want, hey, I want to put my head down on the pillow at night and not worry about this deal, whether it's going to close or not, because I have the right person there on the other side of the transaction, and they're doing a good job. They're going to do the best job as possible. I think that's what they want. Right? They'll buy their own lunch.
Exactly. And I do a lot of LO training, and one of the mistakes that a lot of LOs make is they call the agent and they're like, hey, would you like to join me for a coffee for a lunch? And most real estate agents are like, no, Because all they know, then here comes the hard sales pitch. It's the people that are consistently communicating with them, providing valuable information, right? Now, I'm not saying gifts and all that. I'm saying content that is valuable, insights of, hey, what's the difference and how does this new 3-2-1 buy down work? Here's what your borrower needs to know. Here's what you need to know. Here's how you put your best offer forward the first time so that you have the best odds to win. When you're providing that valuable information and you have a tool like Insellerate that can consistently send that information out to a very large group and a very scalable group, it can be very, very powerful.
Yeah, no, that's right. And one of the things that we built in Insellerate to do this is, first, Insellerate is a CRM. So there's a lot of software systems out there that call themselves CRMs that aren't really CRMs. They're marketing automation platforms that have some contact management kind of stuff. CRM is a totally different animal. It's workflow management. It manages emails, phone calls, data movement. It's really pipeline, forecasting, all this other information. So in our CRM, we have a customer workflow object that manages how customers are handled. We then also have a realtor or referral partner object. So that's a separate workflow, and they're connected. So any loan over here that has, Sally Smith that's over in the partners, they're connected both sides. I can come in here and see who's the real estate agent. I can come over here and see all the files that Sally Smith gave me, but it's a separate workflow. And our system has alerts, priority alerts, things that like give people, hey, here's the next task to do. This loan just, got approved. This loan just funded. Call the agent, or it automates it, and they can use the mobile app for it. So I think that's one of the things that we've done is it's actually, if you're going to work real estate agents, you can't work them like a borrower because they're not a borrower.
Exactly.
You got to manage them differently. Same thing with our wholesale. As we're finding we're the only people that do it. It's the same thing for the wholesale. Lenders are trying to use CRMs that use the same workflow for a borrower or a realtor or a wholesale, and they're not the same. They're different. So you have to have systems, and that's just, quite honestly, it's because we're modern technology. And the way our database was built, we were easily we can add those things when needed.
Well, and I think when you combine that modern technology with the mortgage expertise that you have at your organization and the lending background that you have, you can tune in and say, hey, the workflow is a lot different for wholesale, and how you reach out to a TPO account executive and handle those channels is a lot different than, hey, here's the one standard workflow and we're just going to shove a square peg into a round hole. So when we talk cost savings, when we talk about saving time with your staff and administering a system, when we talk about the total cost of ownership, those are the things that have a profound impact on the lenders that actually take the time to understand that. Talk to me about the importance. We have only a couple minutes left, and you and I could talk technology for hours. I always love talking to you. You always have so many insights. Talk to me why people are hesitant to just take a look at what's out there. Why would they not take it, and why should they just say, hey, you know what? Why don't I take a half hour? Why don't I take an hour and actually see some of this new technology and how it may help my company grow, help my company reduce costs?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. I think the big one I would say, because I've been in sales my whole life. I've trained salespeople, and it's always about the psychology of the person buying, or what gets them to move or not move. Why they could be reluctant. All these other things. I think one of it is lenders are saying to themselves, I've been being told for the last 10 years there's this new technology out there, and everyone's telling me there's technology is new and great. I've seen it all, looked at it all. I don't really see that there's anything different. And to go do the look and go do the system, I have to start doing more work, and I don't necessarily want to do all that work because I don't see the gain in it. It's just I don't see the value. And what the challenge is, you should look. I mean, if you looked at Insellerate 2 years ago, you should look at us today because of how drastically our technology has changed. I mean, even in a year ago, the amount of products we have, 3 or 4 major products have been released in the last 12 months, and major feature sets, things that replace other systems entirely. So you should look at a platform like ours has changed drastically, and most modern technology platforms have. Now, if you're going to the same lead management platform or the same realtor partner workflow marketing portal that's been around forever, yeah, that hasn't changed. You're right. Why don't I look at that? It's going to show me something I've seen, and I got to do a lot of work to make it install it, and I don't even think it's going to do anything for me. So I think it's just the faith in that there is something better out there, and that they can use it, obtain it, and it be cost effective. It makes them money. This isn't an expense. People have to understand, if this is used correctly, this is not an expense. It's an investment that will make you money.
I'm so glad you brought that up, Josh. Like I said, we could talk for hours. For people who want to take a look at the Insellerate platform and all the cool things that you and your team are doing, what's the best way that they can get a hold of you?
I mean, just go to our website, Insellerate.com. You can ask for a demo to speak to one of our sales reps, and there's information you can download on the website, and there's a blog. You can follow us on LinkedIn as well. We put a lot of content out there. Follow myself or the company. Those are probably the best ways to stay informed.
Excellent. Josh, thank you so much for being a guest on this episode of the Fintech Hunting Podcast.
Thanks, Michael.